Hey, what's up? This is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel, the Who's Ready for some Fighting Words. In this video, I want to do a final prediction for Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo. Really quick, if you like the videos, take the time, subscribe to the channel. Things are getting hot. There's a lot of things happening in the sport of boxing, and I want to be the one to deliver that news to you. Also, if you could hit that thumbs up button, it really does help and support and further along this channel. And without further ado, it's just a few thoughts of mine. Let's talk about it. So, I'm picking Jermell Charlo to win. Here are my thoughts why. So here's, at least I'll say with the last few opponents of Canelo Alvarez, a lot of people are going to say, oh, he hasn't looked so good. I don't necessarily think it's a Canelo thing, the reason why Canelo was going to lose. I think it's a Jermell Charlo thing, why Canelo was going to lose. I think Bivol was the last loss of Canelo Alvarez. But Bivol doesn't have a destroy you mindset. Bivol has more of a let me just beat you mindset. This is competition, and I want to beat you in competition. Nothing's personal. But when you look at Jermell Charlo, everything is personal. Everybody's against him, and everything is do or die. And I think it's the mentality mixed with his skill set, obviously. But I think Jermell Charlo has a different mindset. So a lot of the guys that Canelo Alvarez has beaten in the past, probably last 2 years or whatever, guys are undefeated. So they haven't felt lost. Well, guess what? Jermell Charlo felt lost. And he's vowed to himself not to ever feel that feeling again. And he's been very successful thus far. Listen, he's not just the type of guy who's going to rematch you. He's going to destroy you in the rematch, and judges will not be needed. And he's shown that. While Canelo Alvarez, he's shown in his rematches that, he can't get his guys out of there. Now, granted, Canelo Alvarez, I have to be fair, is typically the smaller guy of his last, opponents of like last 6 years or whatever. So it's not to say that he's unable to get guys out of there, but you know what? That's the weight class that you're in, and that's the path that you've chosen. So either way, you can't get guys out of there. Even a guy, who's older, like a Triple G in that last fight, you just couldn't get him out of there. John Ryder, you really, you couldn't do what you should have been able to do, quite frankly. And I don't want to make any excuses in terms of, like injuries or anything like that, because I don't care who you are. If you fight, you got injuries. If you train in general, you got injuries. Or you're always achy or you're always sore. My thing is my hands, so it's just like, I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. Everybody has that. If that's the argument, then Jermell Charlo can make the same argument. Any fighter can make the same argument. Really, it doesn't really make any difference. So I think mentality is going to play a huge factor, because I feel like a lot of guys kind of get caught up in the Canelo mystique. Like, I can't believe I'm fighting Canelo Alvarez, and I can't believe he chose me. He picked me. And I can't believe I'm going to be walking to the ring. And, and then it's the biggest fight of their life. They've never seen anything that big in terms of a spectacle. Like, yeah, they've been in big name fights before, but they haven't been like in a spectacle before. And there's a difference. There's a difference if, hardcore boxing fans are watching you and casuals are watching you. When casuals are watching you, there's a lot more casuals than hardcore boxing fans. Canelo in itself is going to bring an international, global presence. Well, another fighter is just not going to do that. So it is a change, obviously, of the pace of whomever Canelo is fighting. But when I look at the mentality of Jermell Charlo, that's a guy who just refuses to lose. We already seen that Jermell Charlo, he's been hurt, but he's never been down. He's, very seldom when you ever see Jermell Charlo back up. So this fight is going to be really interesting on a lot of levels. One, the mentality factor, because Jermell Charlo is, when he says, I'm a lion, that's cool, but he's one of the people who kind of lives up to it. He's really going after it. He really wants to win. A lot of times, well, mostly when you see Jermell Charlo fight with a strap around his waist, he fights as if he's the challenger. He's going all out. He's leading the dance and he's trying to finish the dance. And I think it's that mentality that's going to give him an edge. I don't know. I think it could be maybe because the press conferences have been so cordial between the two, Jermell Charlo and Canelo Alvarez. Or it could just be that Canelo's kind of gotten complacent and said, well, I'm the king and, it's just another rodeo. And that's basically how he's been talking. And, it's one thing to talk like that, but don't think like that. Because if you think like that, you have to understand, number one, Jermell Charlo is also an undisputed champion. We got to remember that. Like, he's not an ordinary challenger, okay? He's a challenger who's well proven. He's a challenger who has a ton of straps himself. He's the man in his weight class. You're the man at this weight class, but he's the man in his weight class. Everybody's waiting on him to come back home. So you gotta remember that. He's also has the same mindset that you have. You're both champions. So it's not like he has a challenger's mindset. He has a challenger's mindset mixed with a champion's mindset. That's a huge factor. That's a big difference. And we're not talking about somebody who has one strap. He has the straps. That's big. So I think that the mental aspect of it is huge. Another thing, in terms of the press conferences, I've never seen Jermell Charlo so relaxed as well. And typically he's tense, he's antsy, he's snappy with the people asking questions, the interviewers, but he's harsh with his opponents. I don't think it's a thing of, you picked me. I think it's a thing of, I'm well prepared. I'm very well prepared. And it lets me know that, he was saying this in 2020, I can beat Canelo Alvarez. And I think he's always had his eye on, I think everybody's had their eye on Canelo Alvarez. But what I mean is, I think he's been silently preparing for Canelo Alvarez for some time. And it's not like a fight like this just drops on your lap like, I don't know, like, hey, I'm fighting Canelo Alvarez. I don't think it works like that. I think it's like, there's some talks in the back room, you could be fighting Canelo. And that's months and months and months out, probably even a year out. Now, when you look at it like that, I think he's been preparing himself for quite some time. And I think in just being properly prepared, you don't need to be antsy. You don't need to be rude. You don't need to be jumpy and on edge. You should be calm. You should be a silent assassin. And I think that's what he is at this stage right now. He seems very happy with his life, very content with everything that's going on around him. And listen, if you've already gotten the Canelo fight, clearly things career-wise are going in your favor. So I think mentality-wise, Jermell Charlo's in a perfect place to beat Canelo Alvarez. I think that. I think he's faster than Canelo Alvarez. I think he hits hard too. I think people forget that Jermell Charlo is a knockout artist. That's what he does. So it's not like there's only one power puncher in the ring. They're both power punchers. And I might even argue that I can make a strong case that Jermell Charlo, first of all, 54 to 68 isn't the hugest jump in the world. It's a jump. It's a clear jump. I'm not knocking it. It's a clear jump. But it's not the hugest jump in the world because Canelo's not the biggest guy in the world. I believe on the night of, Jermell Charlo is going to be bigger than Canelo Alvarez. So do I think the power is going to translate? Yeah, actually I do. I actually really do. And I think Jermell Charlo is going to be as physically dangerous to Canelo Alvarez as Canelo Alvarez will be as physically dangerous to Jermell Charlo. So the punch power is going to be there. The speed factor is going to be there. And I think Charlo is an athlete. I don't think he's just a fighter. I think the Charlos in general, both brothers, I think whatever they would have decided to do, I think they still would have reached elite level in whatever sport they stuck to be honest with you. They have the body types, they have the size, like the height they have, but their athleticism is another thing. And again, Canelo hasn't fought a lot of athletes. He's fought fighters, but he hasn't fought a lot of athletes who are fighters. And I think that's another edge for Jermell Charlo, quite frankly. His legs, Jermell Charlo has good legs. He knows how to utilize the ring. He knows how to move. Like I said, the one thing just is going to be interesting is Canelo is slippery and knows how to slip shots backing up, but he doesn't fight backing up. Charlo kind of gets in this deer in the headlight stage when he's backing up. But after the second Castano fight, we saw that he knew he had learned how to reverse opponents so that he could be on the outside and then he can get himself back in position. And I think with him being bigger than Canelo, I think he'll be able to do so. Now, the question is, will he be stronger than Canelo? Because if he's stronger than Canelo, then he can physically maneuver Canelo around. I think he'll have the speed factor. I think he's going to have probably equal punch power. And he's clearly more he has more punch output during rounds than Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez can take off a round. He'll do it. He'll literally take off a round. While Charlo is constantly working. Charlo's like the little engine that could. He's just going to keep on trucking. He wants you out of there. And Charlo knows he's not going to win a fight with a unanimous decision. He knows that. He's got to know that. He's got to know that. I think if Charlo knocks down Canelo Alvarez and then Canelo Alvarez has a good 2 following rounds after that, I think it doesn't secure a win for Charlo. So I think he's prepared to put it all on the line. And he's been doing that before he got this fight. So he's been doing that since the loss to Tony Harrison. So he's already got that mentality. I think that dog mentality is going to play a huge factor. I think the fact that he's naturally just athletic and he's big and athletic is going to play a huge factor. Now, one of my biggest factors and the reason why I think that Charlo has more than a shot of beating Canelo Alvarez is that jab. I've been saying it for about 4 years. I think the Charlos, both brothers, have the best jabs in all of boxing. And they're consistent. They constantly pumping out the jab. I've always said somebody who beats Canelo is going to have to be aggressive. Somebody who beats Canelo is going to have to lead the dance. Somebody who beats Canelo is going to be a person who doesn't sit and wait. And that's Charlo. You can take little pointers from the Bivol fight. Bivol is not a guy who waits. Bivol leads. He's not a guy who waits. He's going to lead off. He's going to be first, and he's going to pivot off. He's not going to be there for you to return. Guess what? Charlo's the same way. Charlo's the same way. The only thing that separates those two, Bivol and Jermell Charlo, is the fact that Jermell Charlo is willing to stand his ground and fight it out. Bivol is not. Bivol understands this is boxing. Bivol understands you hit and you do not get hit. And you just recircle, regroup, and return fire. But Jermell Charlo's jab, the consistency of that jab, that's going to be an issue for Canelo Alvarez. Charlo's already taller. Charlo already has longer arms. Charlo is clearly going to throw more punches in every round. And Charlo's a very consistent fighter. He's not the guy to take rest. And I think Charlo's also, speaking of being a lion, he's the type of guy that if he doesn't necessarily need to smell fear, but if he can smell on Canelo Alvarez tired, it's going to ramp him up as well as if he were to smell fear in Canelo Alvarez. So that's another thing for Charlo. I don't think... I think Charlo has the heart to go after Canelo. Like, when you look at the Billy Joe Saunders, I mean, Billy Joe, he didn't stick to who he was. You know, he went out of character. Billy Joe was not the type of guy who stands his ground in fights. He's the type of guy who moves around the ring. When you look at Caleb Plant, but Caleb Plant is not the guy who stands his ground. Caleb Plant is a very creative guy who moves around the ring. When you look at Ryder, he's just a tough dude. He's just a durable, tough dude who's not going anywhere. When you look at a Triple G, he's a tough, strong power puncher who's going to be right in front of you the whole time, and he's going to do the same sequence over and over and over again in terms of combination, so you know what he's going to do. But when you look at Charlo, you're talking about somebody with legs that can move around that ring. You're talking about somebody who's very athletic. You're talking about somebody who has a great jab. You're talking about somebody who's got power. You're talking about somebody who is on Mount Everest right now. He's on Mount Everest because of, all that he's accomplished in the last 2 years. He's on Mount Everest because he got the Canelo fight. And unlike those other guys, I don't think he's going to vary away from who he truly is in the Canelo fight. That's the difference. Jermell Charlo is not the guy who gets on his bike. He's just not that guy. So that's another reason why I just got to go with Jermell Charlo. I feel very strongly that he can get it done. I think he possesses all the tools, all the attributes, and the mindset and mentality to get this done. And when I look at Canelo, I don't want to say there's just a sense of complacency, but he just, at least in the press conferences, and maybe he was just giving off the same energy that Charlo was giving off. You want to be respectful? I can be respectful. You want to be cordial and jovial and, make a joke here and there? I can do the same thing. But it just sounded like he was just like, I'm just here and, I'm going to knock this guy out. I've been here before. When I start hearing guys say I've been here before, to me, that's always a sign that you've gotten a little complacent. What does that mean that you've been? No, you've been in a big fight before. You haven't been in the ring with this guy in a big fight before. That to me always rings off in my ear that there's just a bit of complacency, and maybe you're believing a bit of your own hype. Not to say that you don't believe in yourself. I think in boxing you have to believe in yourself, and you have to be, in my personal opinion, you have to be arrogant and cocky to believe that you're going to be a world champion. But on top of that, to keep those titles, you have to be a little arrogant. You have to be a little cocky and believe in yourself in a way that isn't normal. I think you have to be that. So I don't mind that. But when it's just, I've been here before. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. Plus, like I said, you're talking about an undisputed champion, Jermell Charlo. You're not talking about some regular challenger. You're not talking about a Billy Joe Saunders. You're not talking about a Caleb Plant. And I'm not knocking those guys, but they had singular belts. That means that Jermell Charlo took the hard way through to get those belts. I mean, the Castano fights weren't easy. The Harrison fight wasn't easy, So, and I think between Castano and Harrison, I think those are lessons for Canelo anyway. You look at Castano, he almost has that Canelo-like body type and height. And he's a body puncher, and he's an aggressive guy who comes forward, who hits hard. And then when you look at Tony Harrison, he's a guy who's very slippery. You put Castano and you put Harrison together, and they kind of form Canelo Alvarez. And he fought both of those guys twice. Finished them. So I don't know. I just feel very strongly that, Charlo is able to get it done. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think he can get it done. I think he possesses all the tools. I think he possesses all the attributes. I just don't know if Canelo can keep up with his punch rate. Like I said, the main thing is when they both get hit for the first time. That's going to say everything. But if I have to make a prediction right now, then this is what I'm going to say. I am going to go with Jermell Charlo. I don't think it'll be a knockout. I think it'll be a unanimous decision. However, he's going to have to fight an absolute flawless Terrence Crawford versus Earl Spence type of fight. He's going to have to. He's going to have to. If you're going to win a decision against Canelo, you're going to have to. That jab has to be so consistent. That jab has to be on fire the night of. And just his pivoting and stepping off. And I need to know how strong he is. If he can physically maneuver Canelo back into position where he can just tee off on him, I think Canelo's going to be in a world of trouble. But there you have it. Those are my thoughts. That's my final breakdown. And I think Canelo Alvarez is going to get a lot more than what he planned for. Those are my thoughts. And one more thing. Let me just say this. I think Canelo should have went for Jermell Charlo. He chose the tougher of the two Charlos, so you got to give him credit for that. He's not the type of guy who will kick you while you're down. But at the same time, I think he should have went for Jermell Charlo. I really do. Jermell mentally is not where he needs to be, and Jermell, his self-esteem and confidence is very low. And he had been away from the ring for a long time, and he was also battling injuries on top of that. So therefore, I think Jermell Charlo would have been a much better opponent than Jermell. Jermell, I think Canelo is going to have his hands full. And I think he's going to realize that relatively early in the fight. But those are my thoughts. Drop your thoughts down below. Tell me if you agree. Tell me if you don't agree. Doesn't matter to me. Drop your thoughts down below. And as always, please like, please share, please subscribe to this channel.